Today we're going to do another hybrid identification walkthrough where I show you exactly the methodology I use to come up with IDs on my hybrid lepimids, so you can use that methodology when attempting to ID your hybrid sunfishes. I am Koa and this is K and Fishing Smarts, where we fishers are always learning and sharing knowledge about fishing and fishes. So we've already done two video hybrid walkthroughs here on KNFS with the greengill and the wargreen. And I do have a webpage walkthrough on a red ear sunfish times bluegill. That's at the link I'm posting now. But really, it's just amazing the diversity of colors, patterns, and morphological features that these hybrids express. So more walkthroughs on different crosses with different specimens will always be helpful. And I will still essentially be following the 6-step common sunfish identification method I created on the website. So steps 1 and 2 should really be done before you even have a hybrid in your hand. These steps are just making sure that you know the basic features on a fish and you already are able to identify the pure species in your waters. So this is our specimen under analysis. This specimen was caught from a creek in Northern Virginia that drains into the Potomac River. This specimen was caught in the last days of April, just before I left for the False Cape trip you saw in the last video, where my buddy picked up the biggest fish he's ever gotten. And I hit up this creek before this trip as I needed to head to REI to restock on stove fuel, and so I figured I'd get some exercise, ride the bike there, and have better access to these creeks. So step 3 involves getting adequate photos. And when you think you have a hybrid lepimid, more photos are always better. Get as many as you can of all the features. So a non-blurry lateral shot is the most important photo to get. Then I like to get a close-up of the head, the opercular flap, the gill rakers, and shots of the median fins, among any other relevant shots. Step 4 is listing all the nearby lepimid species so we can figure out what pool of parent species are in the area. So it's really weird, in this creek I caught dozens and dozens of redbreast sunfish, and I didn't even see or catch a bluegill, a green sunfish, any other pure parent species. But I did get a greengill, so I knew that there were some green and bluegill at least in this little creek system. So the other confirmed species nearby are the red ear sunfish, pumpkin seed warmouth, and long-ear sunfish, although the long-ear really hasn't ventured far from the Potomac River in this region, but we'll still include it. So that's 7 possible parent species to take under consideration. Now, step 5 is the critical thinking portion, where we want to eliminate possible parent species. And after one look at this fish, I was already thinking redbreast times green, but that's a bad habit to get overly confident in IDing hybrids. It's just super important to be able to provide evidence saying, okay, these two species make perfect sense, and provide evidence as to why other parent species don't make sense. And that's what we're going to do now. So first, I always just like to look at the sizes of the mouth, jaw area, and the pectoral fins. If we look at the mouth, we see that it is fairly large, where the maxilla is practically aligning just past the anterior edge of the pupil. So this suggests that at least one parent species is likely a green sunfish, warmouth, or redbreast sunfish. It doesn't eliminate any parent species though. The pectoral fin is roundly and very short, not even passing the posterior edge of the eye if it were bent forward. Again, this really suggests a green sunfish and or a warmouth is or are parent species here. They're the only two species that have pectoral fins this short. With the mouth being fairly large and the pectoral fins so short and roundly, this really suggests the 3 species with the longest and pointiest pectoral fins, as well as the smallest mouths, are not our parent species. It's very unlikely that a bluegill, pumpkin seed, or red ear sunfish are parent species. But hybrids are tricky like that, and they don't always display that intermediacy of characteristics between the parent species. So to confidently eliminate these species, I just want to browse our specimen in question for any features that are prominent on a bluegill, pumpkin seed, or red ear sunfish. If a bluegill were a parent, I'd really expect at least some of that pale bluish white that runs along the chin, bottom of the cheek, and into the operculum. If a red ear were apparent, I would most definitely suspect there to be at least some gray, gold, or bronze spotting on the operculum and a bit on the body. Also, let's look at our gill rakers now. They are long and thin. Red ear have short and thick rakers. Same goes for the pumpkin seed that has the short and thick rakers. If there were a red ear or pumpkin seed in our hybrid here, I would really expect those rakers to be a bit thicker and shorter. So considering I'm not seeing any typical features of bluegill, red ear, or pumpkin seed in our specimen in question, I'm confident enough to eliminate these 3 species from contention. That leaves us with the warmouth, green sunfish, red-breast sunfish, and long-ear sunfish. So let's look at that ear flap. Obviously there's a good deal of color on the posterior edging. That red and orange edging must come from either a green sunfish or a warmouth. And it really looks very similar to a green's in both shape and the presentation of color. But let's consider if this fish is possibly a warmouth times green sunfish, as in those are the 2 parent species. Because if we don't think it's that hybrid type, then we need to eliminate one of those from contention. So if this were a warmouth times green sunfish, then we would most definitely expect that mouth jaw to be larger. Yeah, even having this subtle difference of having the maxilla extend farther back under the pupil would be most likely, as these 2 species have the largest mouths of all the lepimids. Some other clues that tell us it can't be a war green or the warmouth times green hybrid are the features popping up on our specimen in question that aren't on either a warmouth or a green sunfish. So firstly, that blue iridescence in the proximal area of the anal fin is not present on a warmouth or a green. Also, the blue streaking that's barely popping up above the posterior edge of the eye and even right in front of the eye is not ever present on a warmouth, and it's very rare on a green. And the overall color of this fish is very orangey, almost having that brick red on top. A color not expected from a warmouth or a green, and definitely not their crossing. So we need to eliminate the warmouth or green sunfish, and really with the amount of blue spotting and blue lattice on the body, as well as the strong blue on the head that is even fairly strong on the lateral sides of the upper lip, the green sunfish is just quite obvious as a parent species. Plus, we aren't seeing any of the typical warmouth features. There's no evidence of dark bands radiating behind the eyes. The eye isn't red at all. The body pattern shows no dark saddling, and the median fins just don't have that dark spotting either. So we're going to eliminate the warmouth. So that leaves us with the long-ear sunfish, red-breast sunfish, and green sunfish as possible parent species. And the long-ear hasn't moved far inland from the Potomac River yet, as there are just too many big waterfalls between this creek and the river for this species to naturally do that. But that doesn't mean someone didn't release a long-ear into this system. But I'm not seeing any typical features of long-ear in our specimen in question. There's no solid red-orange markings in the median fins, and really, if a green truly is the other parent like we believe, we would expect an explosion of blue color along the body of this fish. And it would be a bit more of that long-ear, lighter blue, brighter blue color. And going back to the pectoral fin, we would expect a slightly longer pectoral fin on our specimen in question if there were a long-ear parent. And finally, the long-ear has short and thick rakers. The rakers in our specimen are just too spindly and long. The long-ear is eliminated. So we think that we have a redbreast times green sunfish hybrid. If we compare our specimen to a pure green caught in another nearby creek, we can see that the dark dorsal blotch that is so typical of a green sunfish is just not prominent on this fish. The lateral spotting on our specimen just does not match the irregular rows of blue spotting that shows up on the body of a green. And if we compare our hybrid to the pure redbreast around here, we can see that, like with all redbreast, there is no color on the opercular flap, but we do see that blue iridescence in the proximal portions of the anal fin, and that explains a lot. Also, often redbreasts will sort of have this faint dark blotching along the proximal end of that second dorsal fin, It's just not as definite as the green, but it's there. Our specimen definitely shows that. And the overall brick red orange color of the body is definitely coming strongly from a redbreast parent. The upper lip is also a good clue to support our evidence of a green times redbreast hybrid. Redbreasts usually have that blue streaking across the entirety of the lip, while green sunfish only have it on the very lateral sides. Our specimen shows a good deal of intermediacy of the color there. It extends pretty far up the lip and has some faint glistens of iridescent blue across the entirety. And redbreasts do have fairly thick rakers, but they are usually medium to long in length. So though the rakers on our specimen appear more green-like, they are a bit shorter than the green sunfish rakers around here. I'm not worried that the rakers aren't thicker here. This does actually make sense. And the Meristics would agree with a redbreast times green hybrid, especially considering the 9 anal ray count. And just to show you how different hybrids of the same crosses can appear, this is a redbreast times green caught by fisheries biologist Bob Jacobs in Connecticut. And you can see this one's lateral pattern is much more expressing the dark lateral bars as opposed to the blue iridescence. And that typical orange and white tinging on the median fins is very apparent, which we normally find on the green sunfish. The ear flap is also much more redbreast-like with that elongation, of which we just didn't see on our specimen. And of course, step 6 is just getting a second opinion, and you can find out how to do that on koa.org. There are a number of guys on the iNaturalist site that I like to post on that also have very good eyes for identifying hybrid lepimids besides just me. So the next production I'll probably release here on KNFS is a little fishing adventure where I went carp fishing and it broke my favorite pole in half. Alright, fish responsibly and good luck, and don't forget to use your fishing smarts.